Well, I hope you enjoyed that piece on power. I wish I'd have heard it when I was a kid. Hopefully it can help you. You know, as I mentioned a little while ago, it's a pretty blustery day out here, and this is a shot that we really need to know to play well in this game. You know, almost every golf course you play in the whole world has an afternoon breeze that kicks up, some more fierce than others. So you really need to have a great wind technique to know how to play those shots, because if you don't know them, you'll get killed when that wind comes up. Now we're looking for a couple of things here when you play a wind shot. We're looking for a shot that has a lot of forward momentum, a shot that's a little bit on the low side, of course, because what happens when a ball gets to climbing, all of a sudden it doesn't have its forward momentum. The wind can really start to hit it, and once it starts to climbing, it loses all of its forward momentum. I've actually seen golf balls fly backwards, if you can believe it or not. When the ball gets stood up enough, it'll start going the other direction. The other thing that can make it climb the ladder like that is backspin. So if the ball's backspinning too much, it might start out low, but it'll also climb. So we're looking to keep the ball low without a lot of backspin. You know, to give you an idea of how important this is, I wanted to relate a story from one of my students. A nice player, he's a single-digit handicapper and was having the game of his life on a really windy day. Well, he came into the last hole even par, and the 18th green was a gigantic green, big as a barge, and he's hitting right into the wind. He left himself with about a 110-yard shot. Well, the 110-yard shot was his gap wedge, and of course his heart was going like crazy. He was nervous as can be. He'd never had a round so good. So he figured, well, you know, gap wedge is my 110 club. I'll just grab it and hit it hard. The green's big enough. It'll be up there somewhere and I'll be just fine. Well, sure enough, he hits his ball. The ball gets stood up by the wind. He barely cleared a lake that was about 40 yards in front of him, and that left another 60 yards just to get to the green. So he didn't respect the wind, didn't quite play the right shot, and he paid the price for it. Now I want to show you a really great way to do this in a minute. And again, the thing that we're looking for is a low backspin rate and a low launch angle. Now that backspin rate also relates to how hard you're going to swing at it. So when you take a little lighter swing, not swinging so big and strong, the ball won't have as much backspin on it. So we're going to be looking for a swing that's a little bit on the easier side. And that is an oldie but a goodie, is that you want to swing easy when it's breezy. And that is really true. You want to take plenty of club and go ahead and over club, if you will, just so you can take a little bit of an extra easy swing. What I always say to my students is, if you're not absolutely positive that you have enough club in your hand, go back and get another club. So don't try and muscle it with the idea that you have to hit it a little bit harder. A friend of mine, Don Walsworth, was a great wind player from Kansas City. And he said, you know, I almost never will upshoot a ball and leave it short of the green. On a really windy day, I might end up on the back third of the green a lot of the time, but I'll never upshoot one because he'll take so much extra club. So you want to remember that. Err on the side of taking too much club always in the wind and take an extra easy swing. Now, talking about an extra easy shot to do, I want to show you a great way to play this wind shot. What I've got is a pitching wedge in my hands here, and what we're going to do is I want you to imagine that you're going to take about 10 yards off of whatever your full pitching wedge shot is. Now, what I mean by that is if you're usually hitting your pitching wedge 110, you're going to imagine your 100-yard swing. So it's going to feel like a three-quarter motion, taking a little bit off of it, not trying to hit it so full. And what you're going to do is you're going to hit a couple of shots with that motion exactly, where you go ahead and take your three-quarter shot and just get a feel for what that swing feels like. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. Just a nice, easy little three-quarter swing. And try to get a feeling for what that feels like. Now what you're going to do is you're going to walk all the way over to your golf bag and get another club. Now what I've got here is my 7-iron, and I'm going to take it and grip it exactly where I did my pitching wedge. Now what I mean by that is I'm going to set the two side by side like that. There's the length of my pitching wedge right there. I just get that length on my 7-iron. So now I'm actually gripping it at the exact same length that I had my pitching wedge. I'm going to go ahead and set up exactly the same. I'm going to swing exactly the same. And so it's going to feel like an easy three-quarter swing with the pitching wedge. And now all of a sudden, the ball comes off much lower and with much less backspin. Why? Because that club face is straighter, so it comes in more directly into the ball. It's not undercutting it, which is going to backspin it and send it up into the air. I love this method because you're going to get a lower launch angle and less spin rate without changing your swing at all. A lot of times when people are trying to play a wind shot, they'll play it way back in their stance, and what happens is the club hits when it's still open, so the shot might be low, but it's also in the right-hand bunker. The other thing I want you to remember when you're playing this shot is you want to play it as though you're still swinging that 3/4 pitching wedge. In other words, I don't want you to hold it and swing it like you're trying to play some weirdo shot with your 7-iron. I want you to think of it as a normal swing, normal shot, little 3/4 pitching wedge, no big deal. So when you're playing this, you're going to want to practice this because the 9-iron will act differently than the 7, and you can even go down to a 6 or a 5 with this shot. The 6 or 5 will come off quite low. Also, if you want to play an extra low shot where it's just crazy wind on that day, well, what you're going to do is you're going to take that same stance with your 7-iron gripped way down. You're still going to swing it easy, but you're going to get a little sensation of dragging the club just a little bit more. If you pitch it forward with your wrists at all, that'll add some loft and pop it up into the air. So you're going to get a little sensation that you're dragging the club a little extra, like the handle is really leading it into the shot. You'll need a good amount of body movement to do this. In other words, you can't just stand there and throw your hands at it. You're going to move yourself strong, drag it a little more with the handle, and you'll get an extra low shot. This is a good one. It's one you're going to want to practice, and it's one you need in your game.